What's going on, everybody? It's Aurora YJ here, coming at you with your monthly dose of YouTuber content, because today is a familiar one, as we're going over the top 5 meta decks, in my opinion, for the December 2021 format. Now, the later part of last month actually gave us a really cool set in the form of Maximum Gold El Dorado, which reprinted a lot of not too easily accessible cards, such as Access Code Talker being the big one, as well as things like IP, Verte, Extravagance, and so many more. Not to mention a bunch of different deck cores, from Altergeist to Dinosaur to Eldritch, all sorts of goodies. While it didn't necessarily bring any new strategies into the game, it did help a lot of people get access to older ones, and had reprints to some staple cards, which really helped bring some new things into the format. And that is really, really nice, because as all the other Yu-Gi tubers and I keep saying, this format is super healthy, and the amount of variation and the good decks you can play is absolutely outstanding. If you would like to see a complete list of the most viable decks of the format, in my opinion, please be sure to check out my December 2021 tier list. Link should be up in the card. Please do check that out. Speaking of that video, both it and this video are based on Brothers of Legend already being out, which it actually just dropped yesterday as of recording this video. Brothers of Legend brought some really nice staple cards to getting some reprints, as well as giving new support cards to strategies that really needed it. Keep in mind that this video is strictly based on future outlook, YGO ratings, and the opinions of me and people around me. Many Yu-Gi tuber lists are like this, so please be sure not to attack me or any other Yu-Gi tuber for their lists like this. It's completely unnecessary, as well as the people in the comments. It's just really childish. But enough with the ranting. I don't want to bore you so bad that you skip through the entire video, so let's go ahead and get right into my top 5 meta decks for December 2021. Starting us off at number 5 is Virtual World, and while I would really like to put Virtual World a bit higher on this list, the main problem with this deck happens to be that it's a bit cloggy. As most people say, the greatest enemy to Virtual World isn't the other top decks, it's itself. However, while bricking is an issue from time to time, when this deck goes off, it goes off hard. With the sheer amount of extending and resource management it can do, you could really just keep on rolling, including through hand traps sometimes. And uninterrupted or not, you're probably going to be staring down a board of Crystal Wing, Kaliga, and Chuchi. Admittedly, the deck has no real back renegation, however, it does have Chuchi for protection from things like battle for your Kaliga, as well as follow-up in case the board is broken. Hell, even Shen Shen and Chuchi alone is enough to make a lot of boards struggle, and that says a lot, considering the current decks right now. Overall, despite the few problems that it does have, it's really deserving of its 58% win rate over on YGO at the moment, and for those reasons, it's going to go to number 5 on this list. Coming in at number 4, we have Dogmatika Invoke Shaddoll. Yes, I know, this deck just never seems to die on any of my lists, does it? Well, it's kind of for a good reason when you take into account the, I don't know, over 3,000 representation and 61% win rate over on YGO. Up until Destroy Phoenix Enforcer was found to be a stupid good card in the deck, it was a bit slept on compared to the other decks in the format, and, you know, I can kind of see why, because when it really comes down to it, the deck is just, it's so boring. It's usually just a slog of normal Alistair, Search Invocation, make Mechaba, Nadir Servant, Ecclesia, send Apkalone, Search Schism, blah, 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 whatever. Despite how much of a snooze fest this deck may be, it's honestly one of the most powerful and quote-unquote underrated decks that I ever cover. It still has the highest win rate percentage of 61 to this day since I've been making these kind of lists. The only real reason that I put it in number 4 compared to some of the higher slots like I usually do is because the little bit of representation, despite the fact that it is growing now that people have found out Phoenix Enforcer is really good in it, it's just really killing the deck from being really, like, seen, you know? Because this list isn't just by how good the deck is, it's also how much you'll have to prepare for it or think about having to see it in your format. Not to mention the fact that the deck is incredibly simplistic and easy to stop games 2 and 3 with things like, I don't know, Chalice, Imperm, Dark Ruler, Droplet, even Cosmic Cyclone for things like Schism. Despite this, Dogmatika Invoke Shaddoll is still an incredibly powerful deck due to its consistency, and will be sure to snag you a few wins if you choose to play it. Number 3 is going to bring quite the fan favorite deck, tearing up the meta by storm right now, and that is Phantom Knights. Now, in my last video like this, I did admittedly put Phantom Knights in the honorable mentions category, and for that I do apologize because I made a big mistake. I was really wrong. I know I said Virtual World was Extender.deck, however, Phantom Knights takes that title and cranks it up by 11. Almost every card in your deck is designed to extend onto your field just by being a level 3 so you can get access to a power card like Cherubini, who, Konami, who thought Cherubini was a good idea again? The deck also has access to one of the best normal summons in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now in the form of Torguide from the Underworld, who, let me remind you, is back at 3. Phantom Knights can also chew through certain hand traps like candy, including Nibiru given the right hand, so please be sure to choose your disruptions wisely. Personally, I would say go for imperming the Bardich, but that might not even stop them. It doesn't even die to things like Dark Ruler or even Droplet right now because they can sit on things like Fog Blade, the Phantom Knight's rank up magic, and even the Scythe Lock, which they can trigger twice if you have the negate for it. Twice! Not to mention they're like one of 2 decks this format that can shit out such a card like Utopic Draco Future. Overall, I am super excited to see a deck like this see some time in the sun, at least until we all get sick of it inevitably, and I for one am very intrigued to see how it'll stand in this meta and even this list when Brave Token comes out next month. However, that's a matter for a different video, so let's go ahead and get right into the next spot. Next up is another newcomer from my honorable mentions from the last list, and that is Sword Soul. Sword Soul is the new Synchro Worm strategy from Burst of Destiny, and it's been absolutely obliterating its way in the rankings right now. With 1.5 card combos and access to things like Boxia, Chao Feng to stop Nibiru, and even Baronet de Fleur, the deck is incredibly powerful in its own right. However, when combined with the Tenyi engine from decades ago, not that long, but you know what I mean, it is absolutely amazing. They also have access to quite possibly one of the most broken cards we've seen in a long while, being Arch Nemesis Protoss. Ooh boy, Arch Nemesis Protoss. For those of you that are unaware, this easy to summon boss monster simply declares an attribute, nukes the board of it, and your opponent just cannot special summon monsters with that attribute. Yeah, overall, Sword Soul has far exceeded the expectations of many people in this format, and so for that reason, I'm putting it in the number 2 slot on my list. Will it hold up for the ban list? Who knows? That's for Konami to decide, so let's go ahead and get into the next part of the video. As per usual, before we get to our number 1 slot, I would like to point out a few honorable mentions. Fluandries is an incredibly fun strategy that came out also in Burst of Destiny alongside Sword Soul, which people initially had super high hopes for, but admittedly it's not doing amazing compared to the other decks. However, it did recently both win and top 8 a regional, and so I have to give it at least some sort of merit. Brothers of Legend brought it Wing Requital, which, while necessarily not the best pick for the deck over something like Prosperity, gives you an incredibly budget option for digging for your extenders and playing through hand traps. Unfortunately, the deck right now is just slightly too fragile for me to actually consider putting anywhere on the list that isn't honorable mentions, because, you know, the fact that you have to Book of Moon your own things to avoid hand traps is kind of sad. But just wait until Battle of Chaos, because I feel like this deck will definitely take a turn for the better. Altergeist has always been an incredibly solid rogue deck since its reign in Eternal format, but Brothers of Legend really gives a big boost to this deck. It got many new support cards, like things like Memory Gant, which is really nice for the deck. However, most importantly, we finally have Altergeist Pukri in the TCG, guys! For those of you unaware, Pukri allows you to use itself in your hand as link material when making an Altergeist Link monster, and so that means not only are you able to get Hextia out going first, you can also trigger things like your Malusik without having to go into something like Link Karibo. Not to mention that when it hits the graveyard after something is link summoned, once per duel you can add it back to your hand. Meaning that if you open Malusik and Pukri, all you have to do is normal Malusik, use the Malusik and the Pukri to make Hextia, and then you can go Chainlink 1 Malusik, Chainlink 2 Pukri, to not only get you more resources from Graveback, but also to guarantee your search. Purple cards, especially Imperm, are still incredibly strong right now in particular, and Altergeist plays plenty of them like the entire Solemn Brigade. Not to mention everything just got reprinted in Maximum Gold El Dorado, so if you're looking for a fun, budget, and powerful control deck right now, please do consider Altergeist as an option. Do I have to say it? Really? Fine, alright. So Sky Striker's actually doing really good right now due to the release of Phoenix Enforcer. Who would have thought that a free pop on either player's turn that also removes itself from the main monster zone so you can use your back row is kinda nice. While it isn't stupid oppressive like it used to be, its end boards are a lot better than just their back row now with things like Phoenix Enforcer on the field. And that's really important with things like Imperial Order, Anti-Spell, Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, Twin Twisters. Yeah, there's a lot of backer hate going on right now. With all of this, I fortunately cannot put it in the top 5, but I will shout out an honorable mention due to its win rate on YGScope. Thank the Lord. Alright, and one more thing before we get to the number 1 slot, I just want to say that if you've enjoyed this video so far, please sure to leave a like on it, as it helps put this video into the algorithm as well as my channel. And if you've really enjoyed it, you should definitely consider subscribing if you want to see more awesome Yu-Gi-Tubing content. I make a lot at kind of random points. Unfortunately, it's not scheduled. However, it does support the channel immensely. We are trying to get monetization by next May, and so it would be amazing to me if you could just click that little red button down there. It costs you absolutely nothing. Now, without further ado, I am sorry for taking so long. Let's go ahead and get right into the number 1 slot for my top 5 meta decks for December 2021. What was that? You knew it was Tri-Brigade the entire time. You guys are no fun. Yep, as to be expected, Tri-Brigade is still holding the crown for the number 1 spot on this list. The deck is still an absolute monster, not to mention that the Lyrillus cards introduced in Synchro Storm are absolutely incredible for the deck. Speaking of which, if you want to see a Lyrillus Tri-Brigade or Bird Up deck profile, I do also have one on the channel that should be up in the cards and maybe even in the description. Be sure to check that out, it's really cool. It has a whopping 59% win rate over on YGScope, beaten really only by Dogmatika Invoke Shaddoll on this list, except, you know, with 10 times the representation. Tri-Brigade appears to be the new undefeated Sky Striker of this format, being incredibly flexible and able to change up depending on the matchup for their side deck. Not to mention that I think Link Summoning from your graveyard's very good, man. I don't know. Not to mention with Kit being the most expensive part of the deck at around $4 or $5 at most, this deck is actually surprisingly incredibly budget right now. And even if you can't afford the really expensive staple cards like Droplet, you're still going to be able to play one of the best decks in the format just by picking up the core and slapping in what you can. It's unsure if the deck will finally be properly killed on the next Forbidden Limited list, but let's be honest, do we really want it to die yet? I mean, it may be boring to go against after all this time, sure, but it's still incredibly healthy as a deck, much like how Sky Striker was back when it ruled an Eternal format, and there's also so many different variants you can play, from Lyrillus Tri-Brigade to Pure Tri-Brigade to Melfi Tri-Brigade, Ancient Warrior Tri-Brigade, Ojama Tri-Brigade, I don't know, man. Whatever you feel like playing Beast, Beast Warrior, and Wing Beast with it, you can totally go ahead and do so and see some sort of success. But with the amount of power and follow-up and consistency this deck has, there's no chance that unless something gets hit really bad, that this deck will be moving from the number 1 slot. Please don't be afraid to go ahead and tell me in the comments if you're ready to see Tri-Brigade get murdered or not, because for now, that's going to do it for the video. I really hope you all enjoyed my top 5 meta decks for December 2021. If you did, please try to leave a like on the video, as it helps put this video and the channel into YouTube recommended. And if you like this content and you want to see more like it, like the rest of my amazing lists, deck profiles, gameplay, all sorts of stuff, please consider subscribing. We're on our way to 1,000 by next May, and it supports the channel better than anything else. So once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.